I'd like to call to order the Middletown City Council meeting for Tuesday, May 16th, 2023. Welcome, everyone. If we can please start with a moment of meditation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Skank, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Farrell.
Here.
Ms. Nenny.
Here.
Mr. Moon.
Here.
Mr. Muederspaw.
Here.
Mayor Condrey.
Here. Our first order of business this evening, we have a proclamation for Small Business Day 2023. So I'm going to come on up to the dais. If we have any guests specifically in the audience for that and you want to join me, I would be happy to have you up. Maybe David Riggs, I don't know, and maybe Lisha and Jacob if you guys want to come on up. Or if you're the official photographer, you can sit there. So if you're unfamiliar, this is David Riggs next to me. He's with our Small Business Development Coalition. And we have Lisha Moreland. She's our Assistant Economic Development Director. So I'm going to be giving this proclamation. And Jacob, Project Manager. Okay, whereas the City of Middletown, Ohio celebrates our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community. We appreciate the individuals with big ideas and the drive to make them come true. And whereas today, the U.S. has over 32.5 million small businesses, from mom and pop stores to establishments providing jobs to entire towns. America would not be the same without its small businesses. The United States has always thrived on the idea of entrepreneurship. It's the land of dreams and opportunity, where anything's possible. The pursuit of aspirations has taken different forms throughout history, but none have been quite as inspiring as America's small businesses run by individuals with true grit and heart who willed themselves to succeed. Their stories are encouraging because they represent what all of us could achieve. And whereas the Ohio Small Business Development Centers provide business counseling and assistance to individuals who are either starting or growing their businesses. Each center is staffed with highly trained, certified business advisors to help small businesses and entrepreneurs with development and growth to increase sales and create jobs in their local communities. And whereas Middletown, Ohio supports our local businesses that create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our communities. Now therefore, I, Nicole Condrey, Mayor of Middletown, Ohio, do hereby proclaim May 17th, 2023 as Small Business Day, and urge the residents of our community and communities across the country to support small businesses and merchants on Small Business Day and throughout the year. Thank you to all of our small business owners in Middletown. Did you guys have anything else you wanted to add or throw in there?
I'd just like to thank the mayor and city council members and the Economic Development Department for their continued support of our center. If my calculations are right, next year will be 25 years of partnership. So it's been a long-lasting and fruitful adventure.
Great. Do you guys have any advice if you have someone who wants to start a small business in Middletown or grow it, who they should contact or what they should do?
Absolutely. They should contact definitely the Economic Development Department and the Small Business Development Center at Miami Regionals. Those services are free for business owners that are starting up and growing their businesses. And of course, from the economic development side, we will route you through the right departments within the city to get your business open.
And these guys are co-located in the city building too,
Yes.
so right here in Middletown. Great. Well, thank you very much. I'll hand this to you,
Thank you,
David.
Mayor.
Thanks. Okay, Ms. Skank, when you're ready, we are prepared for the consent agenda.
For your consideration this evening, we have the approval of the City Council minutes of March 21st, 2023. To receive and file the Civil Service minutes of March 16th, 2023. The Board of Zoning Appeals, April the 5th, 2023. And the Board of Health from April 11th, 2023. to confirm the personnel appointments of Fisher Langdon to the position of maintenance worker in the Department of Public Works and Utilities Street Maintenance Division, to confirm the promotional appointments of Trey Porter to the position of police sergeant in the Department of Public Safety Division of Police, and to receive and file an expedited Type 2 petition for annexation of 93.429 plus or minus acres from Lemon Township to the City of Middletown pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 709.023.
I would like to move that the matters listed under the consent agenda be considered routine and enacted by one motion and one vote of consent.
Second.
Ms. Gank, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Well, that brings us to an official pinning ceremony.
Good evening, Mayor Condrey and members of council. Tonight, we have a pinning ceremony for Police Officer Trey Porter to the position of Police Sergeant in the Department of Public Safety Division of Police. So I'd like to invite Chief Burke up to begin an introduction and the pinning ceremony.
Before we get started, Trey, would you like to introduce who you have here with you tonight?
My family.
This is my wife, Monica Porter, and this is my grandmother. She's 97 years old. This is my mother-in-law, my dad, Michael, Aunt Vicky, Boo. My Aunt Peggy, that's my mom, and that's my daughter, Trinae.
Okay, thank you all for attending.
And then my Aunt Nancy and Uncle Dean is right here.
Okay, the promotional process is extremely long. We have a written test. Then after the written examination, upon passing, they go on to the assessment center. We tried a new assessment center this year. The feedback was very positive. And then they have interviews with myself and the command staff. Trey did an outstanding job, and we're glad today that he's here. Trey was hired as a police officer in 2012. He previously worked at Miami Valley. Trey attended Dunbar High School, also went to Sinclair for engineering. So he finally decided to become a hero and become a police officer. So Trey lives with his wife, Monica, and his daughter. Trey, his experience was a detective, a field training. He was a bike officer, recently became a taser instructor, honor guard, and a member of the SWAT team. He also helps out in law camp. So he's been helping out in law camp for several years as one of the team leaders there and takes on some small kids. Trey, I tried to just find some stories to talk about Trey. As a field training officer, he trained a lot of younger officers. And I don't know how they got anywhere because his sense of direction is horrible. So, but I have one story. I'm going to embellish the story, make it sound a little bit better. But he was training a young officer, and a foot chase occurred. And so he's, you know, when you're training someone, you have to show off to the young officer about catching them. So he's chasing the young officer, and he happens to go over a creek or a pond, and the person he's chasing absolutely just runs on top of the water. He didn't tell us he was chasing Moses at the time, right? Well, he ends up getting away. Well, when Trey tries to cross the creek, he sinks in, right? So he doesn't know where he's at. And he has to call the fire department to pull him out because he is stuck, you know, up to his knees. And then, of course, we are embarrassed because the suspect got away. So, you know, he completely failed on that. Yeah. So, but no, Trey, you can tell that, you know, he just still loves the job. You can hear him laugh down the hall. He does an outstanding job. We'll let that one pass that, you know, he can't walk on water. But who's going to pin the badge on you tonight?
My wife, Monica.
Monica, you want to come up? Here's your one and only opportunity.
Don't sticky, Monica.
Okay, as Chief Burke confirmed, who does the police department call when they need saved?
I figured that was coming out next.
Oh, yeah.
What I heard. Congratulations, Trey.
Congratulations.
Great. I will say, as much as I'm sure all of you want to listen to the entirety of the council meeting, you are more than welcome to get up and go celebrate and leave council chambers at any point in time. We don't expect you to stay. But it's going to be exciting, so you'll miss out for sure. We'll just take a minute, let people move around. Our next item on the agenda will be our citizen comments. So we have 3 this evening: David Brown, Eric Snyder, and Tim Kinsworthy. So we'll just have them come up in order up to the dais, and we'll have 4 minutes for each individual. And we'll just remind people to just state their name and address for the record when you come on up. And we'll just give it just a little bit longer because it gets a little noisy in that vestibule. We want to make sure we can hear our citizens. They're a quiet group though, huh? Okay, well, let's go ahead and start our citizen comments. David Brown, if you want to come up to the dais, and then Eric Snyder will be next. If you want to move that microphone, flip it around. There you go. Thank you.
Do I have to get sworn in?
Just state your name and address for the record, and that's it.
My name is David Brown. I live at 14 Kenwood Drive.
Thank you.
There's pages in front of you, about 45 of them. I got 4 minutes here. The rest is in those pages. My house backs up to Sunset Park, backs up to Roosevelt School. While they were doing the project in Sunset Park, I watched them haul about 18,000 cubic yards of fill dirt into the old Roosevelt indentation where the old track was. When I brought this subject up at the planning meeting, it not too much when they asked the man a couple questions about vinyl siding, but nothing was brought up about dirt. I called the man who put the dirt there, Mike Majors, and he agrees with me that you can't build on fill dirt and need to remove all of that dirt. Now, that's about 40 to 45% of that project, which affects about 10 homes. I'm not fighting the project. I want them to do it right. Second thing is the access path. If you'll look in the packet when you get to it, there's pictures that show about 13 feet of property behind our house. I've lived there for 20 years. We were there, my house was built in 26, the school was built in 29, so we've been there 100 years before Brandon Holmes showed up. We're not a maybe house, we're not a maybe hold of dirt, we're real people there. What I would like to do, I'm proposing is that we keep that 13 feet of strip as is, and if you need to, my question is this, just a quick yes or no. Are we giving that property to Brandon Holmes?
We're not set up for a back and forth, unfortunately,
Yeah.
during citizen comments.
I want to definitely get you answers to anything, so
That's all right.
can we
Doesn't
just
make
get
any
back to you on
difference.
that? Okay.
Doesn't make any difference. I would like that 13-foot strip, and you can see pictures there, and another 8 feet of that path, just as a buffer between the two projects. Now, you'll see in here, he has mentioned that his properties are the deepest in the area, 197 feet, 15 inches. My property is 179, 168 feet. He gives us 28 feet, he's going to end up with 187-foot depth of property on each side. So I'm just asking I asked him, I said, can you give up that property? He said, no, it'll affect the property value of my property owners. So all I'm saying is, you have, and you know, I'm not real fond of putting the detention pond in, but I've spent a couple of days putting that together, and there's everything that I can think of inside those pages. And if you read all of it, filled dirt will not compact itself. We need that land done properly, and we need a little space walking up and down that path for the people that are already there. So I got 43 seconds, and I'm done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for the time you put into the information. Next, we have Eric Snyder, and followed by Tim Kinsworthy.
I'm sorry, I won't need the whole 4 minutes. I was here for the first time the last meeting, and you all were talking about the Sunny Hill Community Center.
Sure. Can you just state your name and address for the record for us?
Eric Snyder, 1525 Taylor Avenue, Middletown, Ohio, 45044.
Thank you.
So I went and talked to my boss, and he's willing to fund you, help fund. Who can I give the card to? That's all I need.
You're welcome to pass it to our city manager over there.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you for helping us with that connection. We'll definitely reach out. Okay, next, Tim Kinsworth, if you want to come on up.
Tim Kinsworthy, 16 Kenwood Drive, Middletown. My property, I'm a neighbor of Dave. My property also backs up to the Roosevelt School proposed project. And we just wanted to bring up some issues that have been brought up to the Planning Commission, and we feel like they weren't heard very well, and we want you guys to be aware of them also. We want to be involved in what happens back there, because we want this done. We want this done right. You know, like he said, my house is 100 years old, and you can't build those houses anymore. We want the houses to fit into the neighborhood and benefit the neighborhood and benefit the people that are going to live there, for the betterment of our town. The easement that's back there that we want to remain back there, because it is a buffer between our houses in that neighborhood. There's water that flows down that at times. The Duke Energy trucks, all the electric lines and stuff are right behind my house. They need to get to that transformer behind my house blows once a year, and they're back there fixing it, and Spectrum and all the other trucks. That's their way to get back into all those electrical lines and all that stuff that runs back there and back through Sunset Park. So that's why I think that's a very important thing, along with getting to the park and all that. I'm not against the project. I just want it to be done right. We want to be involved with it. We want to have our questions answered along with the builder. Like I said, we've been here for a long time. I've been there 23 years. So I've lived here in the city just about all my life, worked here, and I still coach and stuff like that for the high school. So we're asking to be involved, and that's what we're here to do. We want to be involved, and we want it done right, and want it done the right way. So thanks for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate you. It's definitely nice when people who are property owners near a project come to us, because sometimes it's difficult to find those property owners and their contact information. So we have your information now. We're grateful, and if there's anything we can collaborate with you guys, I'm sure staff will reach out. So thank you. Next, that brings us to our council comments. Let's start with Mr. Muterspaw.
Thank you, Mayor. Congratulations to Trey Porter, who just got promoted to sergeant. I mean, just a great guy and good friend of mine, which is nice, but just a better police officer and supervisor. And I think you guys will be really happy with what the police department did, especially in a time when we can't get applicants for anything. It's great to have a guy like him advance and potentially, be the guy one day. So hats off to Trey and his family. Also, I didn't get to go, but I was gone. But the Mother's Day car show, I think the mayor was there. What a great thing for Middletown. I think they had over 100 sponsors. I guess it was packed out. Aaron Roberts called me, and he said it was the best one they've ever had. So just another great thing that Middletown does, and free to the public. Anybody can go to it. So just wanted to give them a shout out and say great job to the group that put that together. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Moon.
Yes, I too will extend my congratulations to Sergeant Porter on his promotion. I did want to mention that this Saturday is the Wine and Chocolate Walk downtown. It's a great event. So if you haven't got tickets, I think they may be sold out. I don't know, Monica, you may know if they're
I don't think they're sold out.
I think they may have sold out their VIP.
Okay. So I think we're probably all serving or almost all serving down there, and it's a great weekend to showcase Middletown. And that leads me to my next point. It's certainly going to showcase the brand new asphalt on top of Central Avenue that was finished last week. So if you're tired of dodging the manhole covers for the last 6 months, that's finally over, and you can enjoy a nice, smooth ride downtown. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Ms. Ninny.
Thank you. As a small business owner in Middletown, I would like to personally thank the Economic Development Department for your continued support and efforts on our behalf. And with that being said, I would also like to invite anyone who's interested in checking out the new Middletown Primo Prime Steakhouse. They're doing their ribbon cutting on Friday at 3 p.m. And I believe they'll be giving tours of their space, their newly renovated space, and the attached cigar bar and all of that. So just a nice way to invite people downtown to see the culmination of some of our efforts down there. And then I would also like to extend my congratulations to Sergeant Porter and his family and express my sincere thanks for his commitment and continued dedication to the city of Middletown. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Farrell.
I always feel like going forth, you don't really have a lot to say. So what everybody else said, congrats to Sergeant Porter. And so I'll be outside of the Primo handing out chocolate. So I was hoping that I would be able to give unlimited and drink unlimited wine, but I guess I can eat all the chocolate I want now. So anyways, that's all I have.
Thanks.
That was a joke. Yep.
Good one. I wanted to follow up also. Thank you to the Shriners for all the work they put into that car show and for bringing our community together. It was a really, really awesome event. Also, congratulations to all MIDI graduates across the board. I'm sure everyone knows someone who's graduating, and hopefully we can all support them as a community onto becoming great contributing members of our community as adults. And we're grateful and for all the teachers' efforts that they've put into raising these young, fine adults, and congratulations to them and their families. I got a little heated today, not gonna lie. That beautiful Central Avenue, walk down the sidewalk, those darn flyers that are getting thrown out. I know you've all seen them, the advertisement ones with the newspaper sleeve. They were littered all over Central Avenue sidewalks, and I was really not happy. So I put a phone call in to the company yet again. I talked to the guy in charge yet again. He was not kind to me yet again. And I said, hey, you need to stop littering. And said, I've also got a lot of citizens complaining, saying that they've opted out of receiving these flyers, and they are still getting them. And he said, well, you need to tell me when that happens. I said, I can't call you 52,000 times. So you need to stop doing it. And so I did call legal department. That we have an ordinance that, as I understand it, that if you haven't specifically opted into something like a newspaper, that anything that you put on someone's house, I believe it has to be hung on the door, so a door hanger, from how I read the ordinance. Anyway, I mentioned that to the gentleman. He said, well, we'll never be able to do that. I said, then you need to stop delivering in Middletown. Anyway, I just want everyone to know I'm really advocating for this because I receive 10 messages at least a day about these things. And I cannot handle it anymore. Our citizens are angry about it. I know everybody's angry about it. It's such a simple thing, but it's not. Like our beautiful Central Avenue today had these mushy advertisements everywhere. So he did promise me that he would have people go pick up Central Avenue and clean it up, and he would look around and see if that was elsewhere as well. But the legal team is looking into the ordinance specifically, how enforceable it is, if there's fines, and then how we move forward with this. So I hear you, Middletown. I'm as frustrated as you are about it. I had some choice words with the gentleman, and I'm working on it for you, so we'll get somewhere. But the little things, you know, it's just like code ordinances and just keeping our city clean. So anyway, for what that's worth, that was my update on those darn things.
Do you think that he saved your number yet from all the calls?
Yeah, he's got my number. Yeah. I asked him if he'd been to Middletown to see it, and I knew his phone number's in Kentucky, so he has not come to see the litter. Yeah. Anyway, that's all I have this evening. So that brings us to city manager reports. Mr. Lawley.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I have just a few things to announce. We began putting up the banners for our hometown heroes on Central Avenue and Main Street today. We ended up, we'll have 99 banners on Central and Main Street. That's just awesome, especially when we go to take them down, 99 banners. But that is just awesome. We thought we'd probably have 35, 40, and it just bloomed, and it's cool. It's a great way to recognize our veterans and our hometown heroes. So if you get an opportunity, go down Central, go down Main, take a look at them. I'd also like to remind everyone of the Hometown Heroes Day and Walk on Saturday, May 27th, from noon to 7 p.m. It starts at Governor Square, and a lot of the businesses, downtown Middletown Inc. and businesses are participating, and we'll have various things to hand out as you walk around the downtown, and I think it's just going to be a cool day. And once again, a day and a special weekend that we can memorialize our veterans and those who have served this country. The next food truck park event will be May 26th from 4 to 8 p.m. at Lepperson Park. If you haven't got the opportunity to go over to it, we're just getting rave reviews about it. On May 26th, it'll be cool. There'll be a band that weekend and a lot of food, and there'll be the kids zone there. So that's going over pretty well. So with that, that's all I have this evening.
Great, thank you.
Can I just say it's really exciting that all the things you just announced are things we've never done before?
Yep.
For the most part.
Yep. Hats off to Jerry and Tracy and the staff who are they're hitting a home run with those things.
That brings us to the motion agenda. Sink, would you like to present that for us?
To authorize the city manager to apply for and accept funding through the Department of Transportation's Charging and Fueling Infrastructure Discretionary Grant Opportunity.
So move for adoption.
Second.
I had a question about this. Have we contacted Duke about the DC fast charging or anything like that? I'd like to know if our power grid can handle it. I know it's just a single fast charging use it basically equates to a typical charging of one normal electrical vehicle for the entire day. And I know it can create spiky and unpredictable loads, and we already have kind of not the best power quality in Middletown as much as I would expect. So I just want to know if we talk to Duke and if we're prepared to handle direct current fast charging.
Yeah, full disclosure, what's on the council agenda is just to apply for the grant. So I will say we don't have a lot of the technical details fleshed out. So I'll definitely take that into consideration. We will certainly vet it thoroughly before we proceed down that route. So.
Okay. Is that something that will determine the location based on our aging infrastructure in certain parts of town and their ability to?
Yeah, and I've already talked to a couple vendors that might partner with us on this, and they've got their own technical people that'll look at it too, and they've got some feedback on potential sites and locations that they'd consider too.
We talked about this at OKI last week, and the question was asked, like region-wide about, you know, this push. And I don't know if this is an OKI grant or through them, but they also have lots of opportunities.
Yep.
And Duke's answer to them was, we have ample bandwidth for the region. This wasn't Middletown specific, but they were very, very comfortable with where they stood based on the rate of growth projected.
So I don't think there's a question their ability to generate the power. It's more the distribution of the power. So I want to make sure, you know, that it specifically addresses that
Yeah.
piece of it. IEEE is even concerned about it, and they're obviously a very authoritative body.
Yeah, and I know that part of the grant funding will go to improving some of the like electrical infrastructure surrounding where those get installed, so it covers some of that like additional infrastructure if it's necessary. So we'll definitely flesh that out.
Okay. I just want to make sure whatever, you know, power grid solutions we make that
It actually works.
to demand the issues that, or to mitigate the issues, that it doesn't fall on the city financially to do so. So whatever that kind of takes. I know there's different ways of doing that, but.
Yep, that makes sense. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Any other questions about that motion agenda? Okay, Ms. Gink, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muterspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Item B is to authorize the Middletown Division of Police to apply for and accept a 2023 Rural and Small Department Violent Crime Reduction Program grant from the U.S. Department of Justice.
So move for adoption.
Second.
I was wondering where the $108,000 calculation came from. It says that that would be the cost of the fourth year and after for the 2 officers. I'm just curious if health insurance, training, pension, et cetera, were taken into account for that.
For the 2 officers, did you say?
Yeah, it's a,
It's 1 officer. Yeah, the money comes from our finance department, and what they calculate the cost would be going forward after year 3 with kind of putting in there I don't know if it's 2% or 3% increase in the collective bargaining agreement.
okay.
So it would be benefits, salary and benefits.
Okay, and I mean, we have a plan for how we're going to pay. Using grants to
So
hire
it's
new people is
no
like-
different than like when we go for the fire department, safer grants. You know,
Right.
it's a matter of, we will try to start planning those years out and account for what we need to start putting back to sustain those positions.
Okay.
And then at worst, we may be in a position where we have to start doing some attritting to cover the cost of those positions. But like the safer positions, we aren't obliged to keep that position after year 3.
Right, but we would have to then pay unemployment and severance and whatever. We're still hiring the individual, right?
Well, unless we lose it through attrition.
I mean, I don't want us to.
Right, we don't want to do that, and so that's why if we lose it through attrition, then we don't pay those types of costs.
Okay. I'd like to keep the officers, so as much as we can plan into the budget.
Yep, we fully understand. It's, you know, it's not without some risk, but we think those risks are manageable.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay, Ms. Camp, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Muterspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Okay, we are ready for the legislation.
Great, thanks, Madam Mayor. We have 12 items tonight. Before getting into those, I would ask for a motion to waive the charter requirements for item number 2, which is ordinance number O-2023-39, item number 3, ordinance number O-2023-40, item number 4, ordinance number O-2023-41, item 5, ordinance number O-2023-42, and item 6, resolution number R-2023-12, requiring 2 readings and the effective date requirement.
I would so move that the charter provisions be waived and that these aforementioned resolutions and ordinances be considered an emergency and read one time only.
Second?
Ms. Gank, could you please call the roll?
Mayor Condrey?
Can we separate these out? I'm sorry. There's certain ones of these I don't want to vote yes to, and I should have said that before we started this, but I have concerns about specifically the legislation 6.
Sorry, yep, so happy to request a new motion. I guess we'll do two different motions, the first being for items number 2, 3, 4, and 5, requesting a waiver of the charter requirements, requiring a second reading, and the effective date requirement.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Gank, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Ms. Nenny,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw,
Yes.
Mayor Condrey.
Yes.
Okay, then I guess there's a second motion then for item number 6 to waive the requirement, the charter requirements, requiring a second reading in 30 days to effectiveness.
So moved.
Second.
To be clear, the reason I have an issue with this is because I don't understand why we didn't get this in sooner, and it's bothering me, and I can't continue to say yes, so that's the only reason.
And I
Ms.
was
Gank,
writing, and so
We
now
can't
I don't know
address
who
that
said
now or
first and
later.
second.
I was the first motion.
All right, I'm sorry. Did you second it?
Second, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Sorry.
if staff has comments on that, I mean, I'm happy to
So
listen.
part of the reason why it was a dual reason here, first reason is we missed out on the original bid that we had due to some delays at the EMA, the Ohio EMA, and FEMA. So that caused us a delay. Secondly, once again, we have a limited number of staff in our law department, and we prioritize things that are going through there, and it was held up in the law department a bit before we could get this together and get it going forward.
Are you talking about the legislation 2, the generator?
I thought that was 6. What's 6? Hold
Six
on.
is the grant.
I was also concerned
Oh, the
about 2, but
transportation
Transportation
grant.
grant.
I'm sorry,
I just
I got my
decided
numbers
we'd-
mixed up. I apologize, that was
No
number
problem.
2. Number 6, we did not receive information from the Butler County RTA until Thursday. So what that did was kind of put us through a curveball at us. And we have until May 19th to get this in, or we lose all of our funding for our transit system. Pure and simple. Our transit system is funded 100% by state and federal grants, and we did not receive information from them because they had a delay. It was beyond our control that this had to be turned in by May 19th, and we said, thanks for telling us now. We thank God we had a council meeting Tuesday night, and that's why this is an emergency. I'm sorry, I apologize.
No problem.
I got my numbers mixed up.
So can we learn, so first of all, none of that was in the staff report as to the reasoning. To me, it just reads like, whoops, we just put it in. So who at Butler County RTA is responsible for that, and how do we improve that
The
process?
staff at Butler County RTA, I don't know specifically.
Because that's not
names.
fair to
I
our city
mean,
staff to put them through that either, so
I
I'm happy to make a
understand,
phone
I
call
understand.
if it's
Yep.
helpful for you guys. Okay.
They're usually on the ball down there. That
Yep,
kind of surprises
they
me.
are.
Yeah.
This was an atypical situation. It was just something that, fell through the cracks, and luckily it was caught, so.
Okay, Ms. Ganku, please call the roll.
Ms. Nenny,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw,
Yes.
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell.
Yes.
Keep turning this thing off, sorry. So we'll start with item number 1 tonight, which is ordinance number O-2023-38, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to grant 2 utility easements to Cleveland Cliffs for installation of a water transmission main across city-owned parcels Q65210100000114 and Q65210300000009. This is a second reading.
So moved for adoption.
Second.
Anything to add, Mr. Lawley, on this one?
Yeah, this came to you at the last meeting as a first reading, and nothing further to add.
Any comments or questions from council? Ms. Skank, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Item number 2 is ordinance number O-2023-39, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Glenwood Electric for the replacement of the city building generator and declaring an emergency.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Mr. Lawley.
Council, this is to authorize us to contract with Glenwood Electric to replace the city building's generator. This cost may be a little shocking. It's $690,000. However, the good news is $516,000 will be covered by the Ohio EMA grant. The city's portion will be about $174,000. This is coming to you as an emergency once again, as it has to be installed and paid for by August 5th of 2024. But it takes a good 8 to 9 months to get it ordered and get everything in line to get it installed. Also, as I stated earlier, some of these things, unfortunately, are beyond our control. We have a limited staff in the law department at the city, so it's tough for us to get some things in a timely manner.
Was this on our contracted legal team or staff?
No, this is with our law department, internal law department.
So it was what was it, 4 months?
I'm sorry?
Was it a 4-month legal delay? Is that what
No, I think it was a combination of the FEMA, getting information from Ohio EMA and FEMA, and then partly on our end.
So this is an increase essentially of $57,116.
Yeah, so what happened here, that was mainly due to FEMA. So Sidewinder Electric got the original bid, and waiting on information back from FEMA caused that to expire. They chose not, we had to put it back out to bid. They chose not to put in a bid, and the only bid we received was from Glenwood Electric.
What caused the need to put it back out to bid? There's a change, big enough changes in the
What
contract?
caused us to put their bid expired after a certain point. Scott, do you want to add anything to that?
Okay.
Nikita?
The governmental process is the answer.
Yeah.
Folks only hold price for so long.
Yeah,
Right.
our typical contract language requires contractors to hold their price for 60 days. And we reached back out to them to see if they would honor their previous price and hold the contract, and they weren't willing to do that, so.
I have to give staff credit that we got it approved in March, right, ahead of the whole process, so we could get it going, so I'm grateful for that.
Tried.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there something we could have done in legal to get that moving faster? I don't know how big of a contract this is.
I don't really think so. Once again, by the time we got it back from FEMA and was able to process it through internally, I mean, it's a very busy department, our law department is, and we have one legal person in there, and once again, we're in a position where we have to do what we can with the minimal amount of staff that we have.
Is something like that something we could contract out if they're behind? I'm just wondering, because if it's contract review, it was 4 months.
That's a possibility, but then again, it's a matter of, okay, if you want to release that more money into the budget.
Right, it's all
Right, it's
cost-benefit analysis, right? It's costing us $57,000 more
Yeah.
now, I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah, so, okay.
And this is, I may have missed this, this is being paid out of general fund, not ARPA funds, correct?
Or capital.
It comes out of the capital fund, I'm sorry. The city's portion, $174,000, will come out of the capital money that you released essentially on the work session.
Yep.
We'll use money from that capital fund that we talked about in January.
Very good.
And the reason to do this as soon as possible is so that the work can be done and
So
paid for.
we can get
so
it
that can
ordered,
be
scheduled, and
reimbursed.
paid for
That has to be done first before we can be reimbursed
by
by the
August,
deadline.
by August 5th of 2024.
Okay.
Yes.
And it's little things like this, I mean, obviously, this isn't a flashy item, but it's things like this that set a city up for success long-term, and, it's sucks. We have to spend almost $200,000.
Yeah, I mean, we're in dire need to
Right.
replace the generator here in the city building. I hope it holds out until August of 2024.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, Ms. Gank, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Muterspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Item number 3 tonight is ordinance number O-2023-40, an ordinance setting forth municipal services that will be provided to 93.429 plus or minus acres of territory located in Lemon Township, Butler County, Ohio, and proposed to be annexed to the city of Middletown via an expedited Type 2 annexation pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 709.021 and 709.023 and declaring an emergency.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Mr. Lilly.
Okay, council, the next three pieces of legislative items deal with the annexation request of 93-plus acres located in the unincorporated areas of Lemon Township. The land includes property owned by the city of Middletown, which is the sewer plant, primarily the sewage treatment plant, land owned by the Miami Conservancy District, and a slither owned by the state of Ohio. The annexation request is to bring these properties within the boundaries of the city of Middletown. There are three legislative parts to this annexation. The first is a service ordinance, which allows us to provide all city services to the annexed areas, including police, fire, public works, development service, et cetera. This particular piece of annexation won't really cause an increase in those types of services because it's the sewage treatment plant and pretty much vacant land. Additionally, service ordinance number 2 would be what they call joining buffers and land uses. This requires us to enforce Middletown's zoning regulations and provide land adjacent to us, for example, setbacks, buffering, screenings, and anywhere close to the city boundaries. The third piece of legislation is the city's consenting to receive the annexation into the municipal boundaries. We are seeking emergency legislation due to the fact that the approval has to meet a 20-day statutory deadline to allow for further processing of the annexation position.
I'm glad you brought up the services, because that was my number one concern. I mean, because I know Public Works, police, and fire are stretched thin, and if it's not going to cause, that much calls for service. The other thing is, just curious, really of my own curiosity, is are we looking potentially of annexing residential anywhere around there? Because there's a trailer park, manufacturing community.
Not at this time, but in the future, we could look at areas around that would prove a benefit for development of Middletown.
Just
When
for
was the last time we annexed? Was Amanda Anita the last annexation?
The last time we annexed a little bit of Coles Road and Old 25, the Marathon station there. That was a sole owner. He wanted to come into the city of Middletown. That's the last time we did it. Other than that, I don't remember anything since the 90s.
90s. It was early 90s.
Yeah.
Just for clarity, this kind of snakes down the river, picks up that bike path area down to the Trenton Bridge, basically. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, what would be annexed as part of this annexation, as stated in the staff report, it's a two-phase proposal. This would hit the police department's gun range property and some of the floodplain land along the river as you progress from that gun range area down to the bridge that crosses into Trenton. As the city manager stated, this is all undeveloped, for the most part, undevelopable land. So from a service load increase and the like, it would be incredibly de minimis. But long-term, there's two things here, is that since the state statute requires there to be at least a 5% contiguity between the annexed territory and the municipal corporation's boundaries, to make our way down to the sewer plant is actually a two-phase process. So assuming that council ultimately, after the county commissioners process the annexation petition, ultimately accepts the annexation by further legislative action here, probably about 120 days from now, then a subsequent filing could be filed that would still skirt along the river, but bring the sewer treatment plant and some other MCD and other related properties into the city, primarily for two reasons. One, to make sure that the sewer plant and its expansion over time is, within our development regulations, not the counties or the townships, and also allows for potential future contiguity to other properties in the Excello area if people choose, and especially for redevelopment. I think, as the mayor asked and others asked, their residential properties in and of themselves probably wouldn't be, but if it's part of a larger redevelopment effort in certain parts there, then I would assume future councils would be receptive to at least listening to those proposals.
The important thing there is it gives us control over the sewage plant from other government entities passing legislation that might hinder our expansion of that facility should we need to.
It's curious to me that this city-owned property where we have a wastewater plant is not located inside of the city of Middletown. So I guess that's the first big, oh, wow, that's different.
There were several areas like that. Weatherwax Golf Course was like that.
Mm-hmm.
While those weren't in the city limits, we actually, police and fire, serviced them anyway.
Right.
Fire
So in
serviced
terms
the
of
sewer
service,
plant. We
these
serviced.
are already our responsibility because they're city-owned properties, correct?
We get a call for service at the water treatment facility, Middletown. Police and fire are dispatched.
Who services the township area for the?
Monroe.
Monroe does.
Would we be responsible for water rescues in that section of the river now?
Well, if it is within our boundaries, yes, we would be, just like we are now.
So it'll extend the area that we have to patrol the riverway?
It could, yes.
But in lieu of a water rescue team for the township, would they not call the city and?
We would get called anyway
County
there.
would get called
County
in.
would come out on.
Once again, we'd get called there, and then what we do is when they're in this area, we dispatch, and then we call Monroe to assist us, their water rescue team.
Okay.
Can you help explain the emergency piece? I don't understand the process. What is requiring the emergency?
So after an annexation petition is filed, Chapter 709 requires the receiving municipality to pass, in this case, 3 pieces of legislation that at times will do a combo with the consent language included in the service resolution. But there's basically 2 things that you need to attest to as a municipal corporation before the county commissioners can hold a public hearing and do their ministerial duties on the annexation process, and that is to communicate what municipal services would be provided to this territory if it's brought within the corporate boundaries, and also secondly, that the city agrees ahead of time that we're going to enforce our zoning requirements for buffers and setbacks and the like against any unincorporated land in this territory. And all of that all that legislation has to be provided to the county commissioners within 20 days of the petition filing. So in this case, the petition was filed on the 4th of May. So
By who? Okay. The city filed on the 4th of May, is that
Yes,
what we're
ma'am.
saying?
Yes, ma'am.
So it always has to be an emergency no matter what?
Under our charter provisions, yes. There are communities out there that can go down the resolution passage route, and they don't have perhaps the requirement for 2 separate readings and a 30-day effective date. They can have just 1 reading and it becomes effective that evening, that day, whenever they pass it. Because of our charter provisions of how legislation is handled and administered, there's no conceivable way any annexation petition would not force council to consider emergency legislation.
Did we, sorry, my memory is bad. Did we vote on something at the last meeting associated with this?
I don't think so.
No.
Because in a 20-day period, we could get 2 readings in. That's why is there a reason we filed so early, or?
Well, the other thing is it has to be effective as well. So you would have to have 2 separate readings and then also 30 days after that.
Well, we could do a
Our
second
next
reading
council
emergency.
meeting is 21 days, correct? This is our 3-week period.
Well, we have 14 days typically between meetings.
Yeah.
I'm just,
Typically.
annexation is like, to me, it's a big deal, and I'm having a little bit of stress over
There's still a public meeting.
single
that's-
reading.
The commissioners hold a public meeting still, is that correct?
Yeah, so the process is actually the commissioners did the first of their ministerial processing, is that they journalized the receipt of the petition actually this morning or yesterday at their meeting. Then the municipality, the potential receiving municipality, then passes its legislation. If not, then the petition dies. Assuming the city passes the legislation in question tonight, then within 30 days, but no later than 45 days, the county commissioners hold a public hearing where they review the annexation petition under the 8 criteria that are established by 709.023 under the expedited type 2 statute. And then they vote. In this case, it meets all the requirements. After that occurs, the clerk of the county commissioners presents to our clerk of council a journalized resolution and a certified copy of all the proceedings. And then ultimately that sits, like Lenin's body, it sits in state, so to speak, for 100 days, after which point the city then has one final legislative act to take, and that is to pass an ordinance to accept the annexation. So this is the first of a 2-stage process from the city's standpoint before you would make any ultimate decision on the acceptance of the territory within our corporate boundaries.
And would that acceptance come in the form of 2 separate readings?
Yes, ma'am.
Non-emergency?
Yes, exactly.
And so we have to file technically before the county commissioners' meetings for them to, is that?
Yes, because the statute's written that the commissioners will not hold their public hearing until the annexation petition has been fully effectuated by the filing of, so as agent for petitioner, you have to also provide affidavits to the commissioners, which were provided last Friday, that you've served notice to all the properties in the territory for annexation, everyone that abuts and is adjacent to it, the township fiscal officer, our clerk of council, the whole gambit. Also part of that then record is then the legislation that the municipal corporation would pass and file with the clerk of the county commissioners for them to say, now we have a full packet. We have a petition. We have all the parties involved and neighboring to the territory have been noticed. And we have the municipality that would potentially receive this territory stating these are the services that we would provide if it's annexed, and we agree to zoning buffers and everything else. Once the commission has all of that, then they can proceed with their public hearing process. I know it's a little Byzantine, but that's how annexation law is in this fine state.
Are there utilities currently run to any of this, or is there going to be any infrastructure required?
Not to my knowledge. I don't believe I can't speak. Maybe at the gun range we have some drainage, but there's, like I said, this is all bottom land for the most part. I'm not aware of any. I'm looking for
City sewer connections or any of those required?
Yeah, and also remember too is that a majority of Lemon Township is already serviced by our utility system. Some of it water only, but there are also water and sewer customers in that area.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're avoiding any further sewage issues and connection requirements, because we have a lot of that still left over from 30 years ago. We're not connected. And I'm definitely hesitant to go any further than this with annexation. I feel like we haven't really taken care of some of the land that we did annex 30-some years ago, and we aren't doing maybe as good as we can, and I would hesitate to take on anything additional like that. I think specifically of that trailer park by Kroger, and it's not an area that I think we necessarily need to be taking on. I could obviously open a further discussion on that stuff, but I hesitate to take also additionally new residents that are of very low income and will need our services, and now we're expanding and needing to create more infrastructure in an area that is actually just going to cost us a lot of money and potentially not bring as much in. So I would really want a long discussion about that before we throw any emergency legislation items out further. And also I would ask that the maps help me, because these engineering maps, I can't read them very well. If there's a way to overlay it on a real map, it would
You'll
help.
find the maps up in the consent, was it in the consent agenda?
Yeah, but there's still very much engineering maps with like lines and numbers instead of maybe something that I would normally be able to read a little bit easier. It would be helpful if it's possible to do that if we're going to have a discussion about any further annexation.
Yeah, I would somewhat agree. I would be very leery and cautious on the residential if this went.
Once again, this is vacant land other than the sewer treatment plant that's owned by the city.
And I think it's also important to know that in this case, the filing was done by the city because we own territory outside, and we're technically, not to get too in the weeds, we're technically the only signatory, although there are other property owners, but they're political subdivisions or the state of Ohio, so they don't count as a petition signatory. Keep in mind, any private property owners now or in the future, regardless if it's this part of the state or others, or not the state, but this part of the city or another, is that they have to be the ones petitioning. They have to be the ones that, request it. It's not something that's forced upon them. And obviously they wouldn't file unless things have been vetted way ahead of time at a staff level and also ultimately with council.
Yeah, the only reason I mentioned it is because it was said that this could then lead to more, so. I
It
just thought
can, yeah, but, it takes two to tango.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, Ms. Gang, could you please call the roll?
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mueller-Stahl?
Great. Next this evening is ordinance number O-2023-41, an ordinance setting forth the zoning buffer requirements the city of Middletown will enforce following the annexation of 93.429 plus or minus acres of territory located in Lemon Township, Butler County, Ohio, to the city of Middletown via an expedited Type 2 annexation pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 709.021 and 709.023 and declaring an emergency.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Mr. Lawley, did you have anything to add to this one?
No, not at all.
Any other comments or questions from council? Okay, Ms. Gang, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mueller-Stahl?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Item 5, the last annexation ordinance, is ordinance number O-2023-42, an ordinance consenting to the annexation of 93.429 plus or minus acres of territory located in Lemon Township, Butler County, Ohio, to the city of Middletown via an expedited Type 2 annexation pursuant to the Ohio Revised Code 709.021 and 709.023 and declaring an emergency.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Mr. Lawley, did you have anything to add?
Don't have anything to add.
Any other comments or questions?
No.
Okay, Ms. Gang, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mueller-Stahl?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Item 6 is resolution number R 2023-12, a resolution authorizing the filing of applications for calendar year 2024 with the Ohio Department of Transportation for grants under the Ohio Public Transportation Grant Program and declaring an emergency.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Council, quite frankly, we got hit with this bit of a curveball late Thursday afternoon. This will allow the Butler County Regional Transit Authority to essentially submit grant applications to the federal government and to ODOT for capital and operating expenses for the city's transit operation. The legislation allows Butler County RTA to submit the grants to ODOT on our behalf. We do this annually, as ODOT requires the city to annually pass legislation authorizing staff to submit application for the grant we receive for each fiscal year. This is an emergency due to the fact that we need to sign off on this by May 19th. So essentially, whenever this transit stuff comes, they will send me notification, hey, you need to get on the Federal Transit Authority site and click that you approve of this particular grant being applied for or received, sign off, and generally that has happened in a timely manner in years past. Butler County RTA had an issue, a problem, they missed it, and this was the result thereof. This is the first time that I'm aware of, I've talked to Julie, that she's aware of, that something like this has occurred with Butler County RTA.
I've had a lot of requests for the buses to run later. It looks like right now, I think the last bus is in somewhere around 5 or 6, and people are having a hard time. If they're trying to use it for work, they can't also then go get groceries. And so that is becoming a hardship for certain areas of the city. And the whole goal, in my mind, of this transit system is to help people get to work and live without having, a vehicle necessarily. So I don't know if that's, I don't know how we...
Once again, I'll get with Matt at Butler County RTA and see if that can be accommodated. I would say it might get into being a cost issue, and we'll see what that cost is, or if schedules can be changed up a little bit, but I will contact him this week.
Okay, and are we considering going to pay for service? I know we had talked about that.
We've talked about it, but that's all we've done. We haven't really done any serious action on it.
Okay. Sorry, one more question about the buses, which I know is not whether we approve this legislation item tonight or not, but the bus station is having an exponentially increased number of homeless.
And Chief Burke and his
Loitering
team are currently working on it and trying to clear things out.
Okay.
Yep.
Just thought I'd mention it.
Yeah,
I'm sure I'm not the
we're
only one who's
aware-
noticed.
Well aware of it.
To that end, as a business that abuts
Yes.
that bus station, we've seen an increased traffic of people trying to come into our business and that sort of thing. So I'm sure we're not the only ones, and
No, you're not. And once again, Chief Burke and Sergeant Wilcox are presently working on it. They've cleared out a couple camps around the downtown area, and then we're going from one point to the other to try and clear them out.
and I know this is something that I've addressed in the past, but the access to restrooms at that bus station has always been an issue, and I think that that's part of what overflows into the businesses down there is the lack of access to public restrooms or any kind of restroom there. I had someone come in and say that they were asked for their ID in order to use the restrooms there, and so I'm not sure how that works or what their process is.
We've had
for
problems
allowing
with that over the
people.
past. You leave those restrooms open and they get destroyed.
Sure. Well, they're either going to destroy the
I think
restrooms
Scott
or they're
might
going to
be able
destroy the
Elaborate on that, but
small
that,
businesses that
it
surround
is.
there,
Yep.
or the amenities of the small businesses around there, or the dumpsters, or the location where the dumpsters are. It's, it's one thing or the other, so.
Yeah, I would be in favor, honestly, of the public restrooms getting destroyed over private businesses and dumpsters that are outside, and then having to deal with the ramifications thereof. But yeah, I'm seeing it, I'm hearing about it, and I know there's no great solution.
Yeah, it's tough. We'll circle back around and discuss it with staff.
Does Middletown own the bus station terminal itself, or is that Butler County Transit?
No, I think we own it. Yeah, we own it.
And Butler County Transit operates it, or who makes the decision about the restrooms?
Butler County RTA operates it.
Okay, so are
I think
they?
that's been a decision and, that we've discussed jointly. And once again, when they've been damaged and problems with them, the decision's been made to lock them after a certain point. You end up getting overdoses in them. Then there goes your liability on that. It's a very challenging situation.
It's the same reason we shut the parks down at dark.
Yes. Yep. It's a good point. Yep.
Same reason, I get it. I see both sides of it, though. I do. So it's almost not a winnable situation.
mean, it's certainly challenging. I'm seeing it every day. It's not something that is easy to see or easy to come up with a solution for, but, you know, I appreciate staff and their willingness to address it and hope that you all are able to come up with something.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions on what we actually have before us? Okay, Ms. Gank, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Munerspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Item 7 this evening is resolution number R 2023-13, a resolution to make adjustments to appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Middletown, Counties of Butler and Warren, State of Ohio for the period ending December 31, 2023 and declaring an emergency. This is for the general and capital improvement funds, and there's no action requested until June 6, 2023.
Mr. Lawley.
Okay, council, at the January work session, council approved $2 million in capital improvement funds to be spent in the parks, and this is releasing that money so we can get going with some of the work. The first projects will be the bathrooms in Smith Park. That'll be a major project that hopefully will get started here soon, and then we're going to also put in a shelter at Lefferson Park in the area of the pickleball courts. So those would be the first two main projects we begin on, and then of course that'll also release money for us to start doing other infrastructure fixing of areas of all the parks in Middletown, such as the painting,
Can we get like a list of what is planned and the expenditures, and then
we can certainly do that for you. We'll bring that, if not get it to you in an email before, we'll get that to you. Ally made a list of, you know how the parks plan had what's needed immediately, moderate, and then eventually get to, that has been updated, and we'll get that. And understand that that's a thing that's been, we've looked at, that's been refining, and will have to be refined as we go forward.
And Monica, is the park board on board with what the expenditures are? Are they aware of it and feel confident about where the money's going?
Yeah, I mean, after the last meeting, I know Park Board expressed their gratitude for being invited to the table to discuss park-related issues with City Council, and they would like to continue to be part of the conversation, certainly as we move forward with decisions about how to spend the money. So I'm sure that that list is something, we won't have a we won't have a park board meeting until after that list is compiled, but maybe we could have Ally distribute that list to park board for any comments that they may have about the distribution of those funds before we allocate them at the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can certainly do that. Yep.
The next item tonight is resolution number R 2023-14, a resolution to make adjustments to appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Middletown, Counties of Butler and Warren, State of Ohio for the period ending December 31, 2023 and declaring an emergency. This is the general fund for the Economic Development Legal Services, and there's no action requested until June 6, 2023.
Council, this legislative item is for legal services for economic development. This is for a supplemental appropriation for legal services for outside legal services in the amount of $250,000 from the general fund. We have had multiple ongoing complex economic development projects that have necessitated expert outside legal direction that have depleted our budget monies in the legal services for economic development. The good news is this expert assistance has positioned us, Middletown, for the transformative growth in the years to come. So it is expected that these funds will be reimbursed to the general fund later in the year as some of these economic development related project debt issuances are completed.
Sounds like the good kind of extra expenditures,
Yes.
if we can have them.
Yep.
If they're such a good thing, I mean.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Item number 9 tonight is ordinance number O 2023-43, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing the purchase of a 2,800 gallon per minute Sulzer pump for the Kensington Pump Station from National Water Services. This is a first reading.
Mr. Lawley.
Council, we are in need of replacing a pump at the Kensington Pump Station. I believe, as it states here, the supplemental appropriation from the Water Capital Fund will be a total of $74,740 for the replacement of a pump. The pump has been going bad for some time, and we've repaired it. It's to the point where it's time to replace it.
Item 10 tonight is resolution number R 2023-15, a resolution delegating certain special assessment authority to the Butler County Land Reutilization Corporation in connection with nuisance abatement efforts carried out pursuant to the Ohio's Building Demolition and Site Revitalization Program on certain real property located within the city of Middletown's corporate boundaries. This is a first reading.
Council legislative item number 10 is for Land Bank Special Assessment. This legislation authorizes Butler County Land Bank to levy special assessments on the city's behalf. It's where they have completed nuisance abatement on properties in the city of Middletown. So essentially, they will attempt to recover costs associated with the demolition of unsafe, vacant, and abandoned and blighted structures so that these properties might be returned to a productive use. So essentially, they are acting on our behalf to levy special assessments against the property owners to recover the cost and use the CDBG grant money on other projects within the city of Middletown. So allowing Butler County Land Bank to do this does not really cause us any trepidational concerns on our part, and this is a first reading.
If I may just add one more thing, they do have to talk to Paul before they just go out and do this sort of stuff, so they're not just going to be out running wild.
So just walk me kind of through the process. Is it CDBG, our CDBG funds or county CDBG funds?
It's our CDBG funds that are administered.
And so they're going to use our CDBG funds to potentially take down houses.
Which they do anyway in the city of Middletown.
Which they do anyway, and then they'll levy an assessment against it, which will reimburse them or reimburse us?
It'll reimburse, it'll put monies back in the funds that we can use in other areas in Middletown.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm concerned that if we give up authority to the land bank, that we'll end up with buildings demolished instead of any attempts to revitalize.
No, they don't tear anything down unless we give approval.
And what's the approval process?
We look at it, first of all, if the building department has labeled it as a danger,
Which we have a tendency to overlabel as a danger, but okay.
An unsafe structure, then it has to come down. If
Does it go through council or board or commission or just city staff at that point?
My experience over the last year with it has been staff.
I'm also on the board, so I'm responsible a little bit too. So for example, they wanted to take down the Snyder building. I don't know if you remember, probably about a year ago, we had this conversation and we said no. So for example, we all kind of find out before the only homes since I've been on the board that I've seen have been taken down are beyond repair, just cheaply built homes that are cottages that you could not.
Yeah, it's mostly condemned structures.
Condemned structures. And
I'll give you another example. The old Knights of Columbus building at First in Curtis, they wanted to take that down, and it came through city staff, and we said absolutely not. That's a beautiful historic building, and so it did not come down.
The board has a little bit of a tendency to want to tear down a little bit more than probably city staff or residents of Middletown Council. Mm-hmm. So that's obviously something that I think you guys and Ashley and Dever have done a really good job, just from my experience of blocking those things.
Yeah,
And if a building has a chance to be rehabilitated, I know that's Ashley and Deborah are absolute adamant about that, because the last thing we want is another vacant infill lot.
Right. And I guess my concern isn't the existing staff and council, because I think we're on the same page there. It's more, I want to make sure we're not doing something that then in the future, we get a different set of people in here, and now the land bank says we need to take all these things down, and it just railroads itself through because we've gotten rid of some other approval process that would have given authority to save something in some capacity. I just want to make sure we're not changing. Just because we have a group right now that feels like we're on the same page, are we changing it for the future to avoid?
But at that point, they could just go and change it right back, so it doesn't, you know what I mean?
I guess I'm trying to remember for context. Is this something that we do every year? We pass this resolution every year, allowing them the ability to?
I don't remember this last
No,
year.
this is the first time I remember us. This, actually what this does is, once we've said, okay, tear it down, they're involved in coordinating the demolishing of all the unsafe, vacant, abandoned, blighted structure. They deal with all the contractors, the subcontractor. They know what they spent. We're just saying, okay, instead of us going out and having staff do this, we're having them do it, since they're closest to those that are doing it. But once again, as Brody said, they don't do anything until they notify us.
I don't have the contract in front of me, maybe you have it on your computer, but generally I like the idea of having something sunset after a year or 2 or 3, and then it has to come back and have another set of eyes. Does this do that?
I don't believe so.
I don't believe so.
And just to clarify, this is
We don't
for
have access to the contract.
levying the special assessment. It doesn't really change the process for the actual decision to.
Yeah, and if we ever need to go back, we just bring it back to you and say, we need to.
But we can look to add something like that if you guys would like some sort of sunset provision.
Well, like you
That's
said,
what I
it
was
doesn't
trying to
really
remember.
change the process of taking a house down, it just changes the special assessment process, so, yeah.
It allows us for they got the staff who can do the cost recovery for us.
Yeah. If this was strictly related to demo, I think I'd be more
Right.
interested in this.
I would too.
But since it's not related.
It's the same process
So
on
it's
the
not,
demo.
it's not altering the demolition process,
No.
it's only the,
It's only the special.
Say, hey,
It's only recovering the costs.
try to recover the cost so we can put that money from the grant fund to other uses.
so does that mean the city would not be writing the demolition, what am I trying to say? Like, the Vickers has taken down a bunch of things in the city. Would that be the land bank writing that portion of it? Or are we still floating the bids for demolition? Or is that going?
If this is a thing that the land bank is going to take down, they handle all that.
So is that different from now or the same?
I think it's the same.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the same.
I mean, in the past, when they've taken down houses, it's just kind of like, never really comes to us. It just kind of goes through
Yeah.
the staff process.
There've been demolitions we have that haven't gone through the land bank that we've done, and so we've dealt with Vickers or whoever got the bid.
Okay. So different processes there.
Yes. The same but different.
And I'll add this kind of while we're on the subject. So the last land bank meeting we had, which was a few months ago, we have another one Thursday. I'm going to butcher this a little bit, but I'll make it make sense. But we have said company that has started refurbishing, for lack of a better term, gas stations, old abandoned gas stations, because in Middletown we have at least 20 of them, right? And it's funny, I sat with one of the Westchester Township trustees, and she's like, I don't see why this is a problem. And I'm like, well, big problem here, we just have abandoned gas stations. So what they're doing is literally there's so much money at the state to redo these old gas stations that the state's just find somebody to do it. So what the Butler County Land Bank is working with right now is this specific company that's like, yeah, if you can, get us the money, we'll do them all. So we're working towards a contract agreement loosely with this company. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but to where hopefully they can start doing multiple gas stations in Middletown at a time. Then I said, well, what about other things? Like, what about abandoned dry cleaners? Because those are actually weirdly like the Golf Lamb across from where the new fire station's going at the old Jefferson School. Like, that thing's like $400,000 roughly to take out. And they're like, yeah, we can do that too. There's grant funds for that. So it's kind of funny because this has been a problem for years and the money's actually been there. It's just people didn't know how to spend it. So the land bank has been working on that, and I think that's going to be, as far as tearing down houses, like that's obviously important, but this is going to be something that could really be a major economic revitalization tool long term.
What do they refurbish them to? Back to gas stations or?
So it's, each situation's a little bit different. We're still trying to figure that out as far as cost, but I mean, it's like, there's multiple ways, so I don't even want to get into it.
The removal of the tanks, I would assume, is one of the biggest expenses.
Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe I missed your question. You said, what's the expenses?
No, what's the,
Like,
what are they
what is so
refurbishing?
complicated? How are they refurbishing?
Oh, well, the problem is these old gas stations, yeah, so they have the tanks in the ground.
Environmental stuff.
Yeah, the environmental stuff, the EPA stuff, and basically get rid of them so that way they can be, so for example, we have one we're looking at, it's on the, it's Manchester, the site of Manchester is close to Titus. It's on the corner of Manchester, and I forget the name of the road, maybe it's Short Street, right by Wildwood Elementary. There's an old abandoned gas station there, and the guy owns it. And then what else is cool is he was behind on property taxes, and they said, well, if you want us to help you out, you better pay your taxes back. So Butler County, Middletown got more property taxes back, and it's no cost to the city. And now hopefully this will be redone, and it can be some type of business long term. And if nothing else, it's going to be a refurbished property. Don't ask me to say that again.
I'm interested, the way that other communities deal with this, is this similar? Is this something that is this
it's kind of a newer
procedural thing that we're changing? I mean, I'm saying allowing the assessment and the way that we're changing things here. Is this more common in other cities, or is this,
We're back to original point, not what I said, correct?
I'm not talking about the gas stations here. I'm talking about just the way that other cities handle their land bank and the way that they handle assessments. Is this more typical for the way that other communities are handling this, or is this something that we're doing that is not common?
Every land bank operates a little bit differently in every county. That's my only answer to that.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I'll find out, but I stand corrected on one thing also. I get my acronyms mixed up, and I apologize. This is not CDBG money, it's ODOD money, which is the Ohio Department of Development. It's one of my struggles has been dealing with these acronyms and abbreviations from development services and economic development. I go into a meeting and I'm like, I just walked out of a foreign language class.
So the alternative.
So I apologize. It's ODOD money that the land bank gets, not the CDBG money, Ohio Department of Development.
Not to belabor it, but let's say this doesn't pass. Either the city is not recouping the lost funds, or they're working on the assessment themselves. So
then we would be working on the assessment ourselves.
The job for no cost. Is that right?
Well, it's like we're putting the cost up front, and then we're getting reimbursed later. We're just not doing the work.
There's no
like administrative fee.
Exactly. There's no administrative cost. We would. Okay.
Good.
Great.
All right.
Let's go ahead and move on.
All right. Item 11 tonight is resolution number R 2023-16. A resolution authorizing the city manager to apply for a matching grant and enter into a grant agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation, Office of Aviation for the Apron F Rehabilitation Project at Middletown Regional Airport. This is a first reading.
Mr. Hawley.
Council, this legislation is to authorize the city manager to apply and accept an ODOT grant to repair and reconstruct Apron F at the airport, which is located on the north end near the Butler County Warbird Museum. The 2015 paving assessment identified Apron F as needed reconstructed, and we have not done it, and it is only further degraded over time. This grant will allow us to hopefully pay to pave this, and 93% of the cost will be through ODOT, and 7% will be funded by the city, which will be about $11,200, which is in the airport fund. And this is a first reading.
Is this area also going to, in theory, be used by the Butler Tech hangar?
Yes.
Yeah.
Will they be connecting to
should
the apron in some capacity?
Yeah, the two driving factors here, regardless of Butler Tech, and we're behind the scenes, just to let council know, working out the finer details for an ultimate proposal to you folks for some sort of land lease and the like as well for that potential project. This is an area that there's kind of two things. Part of this is just deteriorated pavement, plain and simple. The other thing is that we have applied for ODOT and FAA funding for a realignment of this taxiway into the main taxiway. Right now, if you may remember, it's at an odd angle. So it's to reconfigure that, make it more of a 90-degree. The issue is also the FAA and ODOT have pointed out is that this strip of pavement leading to those hangars is a lot narrower than it should be or is preferred to be by them. So some of this would actually be a partial widening as well of that taxiway. But Mayor, you are correct. Conceptually, they would be, if they do build in that area there by the Warbirds, this would be the most logical point of connection to the taxiway system versus some other direct connect.
We discussed that at the last meeting and kind of all of those, like, is it going to connect and where's it going to connect? Does it need to be bigger? And that was something Joe, I think, was going to bring back to staff and noodle through that a little further.
Interesting, those hangars down there aren't very big. I'm surprised that they're recommending that the taxiway be widened. I don't know for what aircraft that would.
Yeah.
I don't think any jets are going down to that set of hangars, but.
No.
Okay.
Great. Our final legislative item tonight is number 12, which is resolution number R 2023-17, a resolution to make adjustments to appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Middletown, counties of Butler and Warren, state of Ohio, for the period ending December 31, 2023. This is the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 fund, and this is a first reading.
Council, at the January 2023 work session, you approved the utilizing of $250,000 for the economic development grants for our small business grant program. This legislation appropriates these funds to allow us to begin to implement the program and award applicants who qualify for the same.
I'm excited about that one. Look forward to hopefully getting some applications. That's per the last round, we weren't getting quite enough, so.
Well, what's funny is just this last weekend, I have a friend that's getting ready to open up a business potentially in Middletown. And I said, hey, have you looked into this program? And they're like, oh, well, it's for downtown only, isn't it? So I don't know how, but I mean, to your point last week and pretty much all of our points every time we talk about this, it's not just downtown. But I mean, what percentage of the city actually watches these council meetings where we sit here and talk about this? Like, I don't know the best way to get it out, but
we'll work on that.
Posters.
We will work on that through our communications. It's good to know. One good thing too, as far as that is concerned, we've received over 60 applications for our communication manager's position. So we'll be going through over 60.
6-0?
60, yes.
I mean, of course we have.
60.
Sorry. Yes.
Yes.
A lot of things
Great.
to talk about.
Yep. Going to be exciting. Going to be exciting.
Lots of opportunity to say nice things about Middletown.
Yep.
Well, that concludes our legislation for the evening. Do we have any new business items that anyone wants to bring to the table? Okay. We have a request to move to executive session under the authority of ORC 121.22G8 to consider confidential information related to the marketing plan, specific business strategy, production techniques, trade secrets, or personal financial statements of an applicant for economic development assistance, or to negotiations with other political subdivisions respecting requests for economic development assistance, provided that both of the following conditions apply. 1, the information is directly related to a request for economic development assistance that is to be provided or administered under any provision of Chapter 715, 725, 1724, 1728, or Section 701.07, 3735.67 to 3735.70, 5709.40 to 5709.43, 5709.61 to 5709.69, 5709.73 to 5709.75, or 5709.77 to 5709.81 of the revised code, or that involves public infrastructure improvements or the extension of utility services that are directly related to an economic development project. 2, unanimous quorum of the public body determines by roll call vote that the executive session is necessary to protect the interests of the applicant or the possible investment or expenditure of public funds to be made in connection with economic development project. Do we have a motion to move to executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Gank, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Great, and our next meeting will be the 6th of June at 5:30 here in council chambers. Also like to make a note that the meeting on 20th of June will be precluded at 4:30 by a joint meeting with the Board of Health to discuss Tobacco 21. So we'll bring in Envision Partnerships, and they'll talk about like what Tobacco 21 law in Ohio is to begin with, the prevalence of youth tobacco use, its health impacts, society's impacts of youth addiction, and then we can have a discussion with the Board of Health about, any potential retail density we may want to put in or buffer zones, and then also the processes involved in that if we wanted to do so based on our tobacco retail licensing. So bring them in and have a good discussion with them about it, and then figure out what we want to do as a community. So that'll be at the 20 June meeting at 4:30 p.m. So until the 6th of June, blue skies over Middletown. Oh wait, are we planning to vote on anything after? I don't think so, no. Okay, so we'll return an open session just to close it out.